Peter King, Football Night in America, and the MMQB.com, who joins us. Let me start with USC, since we just had Pat Hayden on, and this job search. It's a wide web here with who they're looking at, or they would consider the names being rumored. NFL, could you see a head coach? Could you see Jeff Fisher take the USC job?
I think it sounds ridiculous for Jeff to take that job because, clearly, isn't college football all recruiting? And, I'm sure you get guys to go out and recruit for you, but, does Jeff Fisher know anybody who's a great recruit? I mean, he must know some people who are great recruiters.
It just seems like it's a lot of work.
Well, he's been in the NFL since 1995. And so, basically you're out of college football for, I don't even know what he was doing exactly. I mean, he was an assistant before then, but how long's it been since he's been with guys who have been college football coaches? It sounds preposterous to me.
What about Jack Del Rio?
I mean, I know he's a USA guy. He used to catch Randy Johnson at USC. And, but again, I just, do these guys have the ability to put together coaching staff? Isn't college football all of your coaching staff and all of your recruiters? When I started hearing these names yesterday, I said to myself, okay, Chip Kelly obviously isn't going to do it now. He'd be the biggest laughing stock in coaching history, and that would really take in a lot of ground. When we got Lane Kiffin, at age 38, being the ex-coach of the Raiders, Tennessee, and USC. Is that the most ridiculous thing you've ever heard of at age 38?
But how did it happen in the first place, Peter?
You know what? I think he did the wrong thing for the wrong reasons at age 31 when he took the Raider job. He always figured, I think, that, hey, if Al fires me, everybody will think it's his fault, so I'll get another good job, which is exactly what he did. Then he got that job, and obviously the job he wanted all along was the USC job. And I don't know anything that happened there, but he's always been sort of kind of a really impatient guy. Struck me as sort of a bit of a party animal, although I don't know. And so it just seems like he needs to go somewhere and be a coach for a while rather than to be Lane Kiffin.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be a head coach anytime soon. Peter King joining us here in the New York City Man Cave. And you're trying to figure this out. Normally, you get college coaches wanting to go to the pros, but this is such a job. Texas is going to be open as well, I think, after this season. So you got a couple of very, very big marquee job openings here. And I guess trying to figure out who would be willing, who gets promoted, who would leave an NFL job to go there. I think that's where the interest lies here with these two great, football programs. All right, let's turn our attention to stuff that happened. Patriots sneaky good win last night over the Falcons.
It was a fantastic win for them. I mean, if you just look at if you look at all of the guys on their team that contributed to this win who 12 months ago weren't on the team, think about it. Almost all of those receivers. Aqib Talib is playing like an all-pro corner right now. He's playing really with great confidence. The Patriots are going to have to sign him. He's a free agent at the end of this year. They're going to have to sign him. They're going to have to pay him big money. Because he's a proven talent, and they're just going to have to babysit the heck out of him,
With Brady with those wide receivers, they ran the ball last night. Defense is better than what you think, but they're going to be compared to the Broncos right now.
Anybody compared to the Broncos right now is like anybody today being compared to the 27 Yankees. You're just not going to look very good.
Are the Broncos the best team in football?
Without any question.
Not even close.
Not even close
Seattle?
Right now. But where is Seattle going to play? If you play Seattle in Seattle, they could well be the best team in football. If you play Seattle anywhere else, it's Kryptoniteville.
Well, they beat Houston in Houston.
And again, Carolina. I'm not. Hey, look, I think Seattle's the second best team in football.
Okay.
But nobody is better than Denver right now because Dan, they have scored 179 points in 4 games. That's ridiculous. Peyton Manning right now, and I wrote this today. We talked about it last night at football night. I think this is one of the most amazing things I've ever heard, and I wrote about it this morning in my column. On their last 4 scoring drives, they ran 36 plays, and they never had a third down. They have 12 second downs, and they converted every single one of them into a first down or into a touchdown. That is the most preposterous thing I ever heard. I told Eric Decker that on the phone last night, and there was this pause, and he goes, that is just crazy. It is. It's crazy. Think about that. It's like Canadian football.
I know. But, Peter, I couldn't help but think what Chip Kelly was thinking watching Peyton Manning's offense. That here's Chip, the mad scientist, and he's looking out going, that dude can't run a 40 in under like 10 seconds.
Yeah.
And look at what he's doing.
Well, I think, and I wouldn't say I argued with Tony last night, but we had a bit of a disagreement. I think that these 4 receivers
that was a great discussion, by the way.
Yeah.
I was just listening. Good. You know what? We'll take a break. We'll recap that.
Yeah.
Pete comes into the green room, and all of a sudden, and Tony doesn't, raise his voice, but he did there.
Tony got his dander up a little bit. Yeah.
We'll come back. We'll talk about that. Peter King from Sports Illustrated. The mmqb.com is the website. It's a must-read every Monday morning. And his headline, Peyton at 37, the best from the best. This is what happens. Now, we're at 30 Rock, and we have a green room there. First half is underway, and we're talking about what we're going to say at halftime. So I'm there with Tony, and we got our producers there, and Peter King walks in. And all of a sudden, he starts talking about Peyton's weapons, his wide receivers in Denver, and then you start to compare them to the 05 Colts. The
04 Colts.
04 Colts, yeah. Record-setting Colts. And I'll let you pick up the discussion.
I just said, I think one of the differences is that there are 4 weapons right now. There's Demaryius Thomas, Wes Welker, Eric Decker, and the new tight end, Julius Thomas. And so Tony right away, I could see that he objected to that strongly.
Oh, really?
He said, Marvin Harrison, is he better than Demaryius Thomas? I said, I'm sure in terms of chemistry. And he cut me right off. He said, no, Harrison, come on. Harrison's a lot better. Reggie Wayne, Eric Decker, that's Reggie Wayne. Dallas Clark, Julius Thomas. I said, well, and I started to say they're different kinds of tight ends. And Dallas Clark, by the way, was not a great receiving threat in 2004. Brandon Stokely was more of that guy then. And then Stokely left, and that opened the door. My whole point was at any one time, there was only 3 big weapons they had. Now, Manning's got 4 guys with at least 18 catches in 4 games. So, I mean, he's got guys who he goes to every quarter, every game. And I think he's got 1 more now than he had when he was in Indianapolis. But that didn't dissuade Tony. He went on to the running backs. He went on to the backups. He went on to everybody. And I lost easily.
Did. Yeah. You were the Eagles yesterday to the Broncos, I think, in that argument.
But I still agree. I still think I'm right, even though he was smarter and probably wiser, certainly wiser. But my whole point is this. At any one time in Indianapolis, they had 3 guys, basically. Now, in Denver, they got 4 guys, any of whom can wreck the game for you.
But is Manning
Dallas
better
Clark
now?
in 2004 couldn't wreck the game.
Is Manning better now than 04?
It's so hard to say. I think he would have been. I mean, remember, in 2004, he had 9 straight games of 105 rating or higher. That is absolutely absurd. But I will say this now, and I wrote this in Monday Morning Quarterback today. This is the best 4-game stretch of his career. And it's by far 138 ratings, 16 touchdowns, no interceptions, more yardage than any of the 4-game stretches in 2004. So I'd argue that at 37, his wisdom is helping him play the best he's ever played in his life.
Have you sampled this with 4-game stretches for great quarterbacks in history?
Oh, for other quarterbacks? Yes. No, I haven't.
I'd be curious about that.
I will, but I shouldn't say I'm positive, but I would be shocked if any quarterback has 138 rating over a 4-game stretch in his career. That means you're not throwing any interceptions and you're completing 75%. Who does that in history? Joe Montana never did that. I will check it. I'll check it. I'll check it today and I'll email you. Okay. I'll tell you.
So how do the Broncos not win?
I think one of the things that's going to happen to them is that they have they basically have a few tough road games. I mean, at Kansas City is going to be really hard. Kansas City is a really tough front seven, but Manning gets it out so fast that he can probably combat that.
But we're not talking 16-0. I mean, there's more of a chance Jacksonville goes 0-16 than Denver goes 16-0.
I would say you're right. I'd say you're right. I think that things happen in the course of a season. Passes get tipped. Look at Manning at Atlanta last year. I mean, 3 interceptions in the first half, in the first, 8 or 10 minutes. But so you never know. But and there's so much luck involved in a 16-0 season. But I just think right now on a neutral field, the Colts are far and away. Or the Broncos are the best team.
Oh, wait a minute, Tony Dungy's on the line. Yeah. Hey, Tony.
Hey, Dan, what's going on? You got my buddy Peter there.
Hey, Tony.
Peter said he won the argument last night.
I said you won the argument, but it didn't change my mind.
But you were right. You said you were right.
Yeah.
Right. It's okay. So, Tony, who won that argument last night?
Well, first of all, I have to know what is Peter's opinion. Does he think this group of receivers is better than that 04 Colts group?
No, here's what I think. I think that there are 4 guys playing in tandem right now as a receiving group that are better than that are more than the 3 that played in tandem then, even though obviously Dallas Clark was not the receiving threat in 2004 that he became after Brandon Stokely left. That's my whole point. Now, Julius Thomas, I think, can take over a game if Manning wants him to do that and if he's open. And I don't think you guys were set up in 2004 for Dallas Clark to do that. That's my point.
Well, and that's my point is Dallas Clark was the 6th option then, and he was a pretty good player. But Marvin Harrison was going to catch 140 balls. Reggie Wayne was number 2. Stokely was 3. Marcus Pollard was number 4. Edgerrin James was number 5, who was a very good receiver out the backfield. And Dallas Clark, who was a young player, but they had confidence in him. He was the 6th option. And I just think it was the group with unlimited talent and the best group I've ever been around. I think these guys are young and they may develop into that, but I don't know that they'll have 6 receivers that good on this team.
Well, they don't have 6, but my whole point is I think the 4 that Manning is working with right now, and again, with all due respect to Marcus Pollard, I think right now Julius Thomas, he's young in football, but I would take him over Marcus Pollard as an athletic big target tight end. And who knows, maybe he's a flash in the pan, but this guy could catch 70 balls with 15 touchdowns. I don't know if he will, but he can.
No, I would agree with that. Very, very talented. And he is a lot like Pollard. Pollard was a basketball player at Bradley, and he was a developing player who was very, very talented. And that's the thing about Peyton. He's always going to go to the guy who has the mismatch. So every week, and that's the same thing you see here. 1 week it's Demaryius Thomas. Last week Decker caught 9 or 10 balls. It's hard to shut that group down because there are so many good options.
Tony, I know you're going to the airport. We wanted to try to recapture the tension in the room last night. But
the tension of me getting my rear end kicked.
Yes.
There was no tension. I guess we're just kind of debating, is Reggie Wayne Hall of Fame worthy? He may or may not be. He was the 2nd receiver on that group, and a really, really a great player.
Tony,
so
here's a Hall of Fame question for you, because to me, I think there's a very good chance that Reggie Wayne is going to play however many more years. I'd say at least a couple more years. And I think there's a good chance he's going to end up with more catches than Marvin Harrison and not as many touchdowns. But he's going to end up with more catches. You obviously, having coached both of them, would think that both are Hall of Famers. But what if only one can get in? Who do you pick?
Well, I love Reggie to death and love his work ethic and just everything about him. But Marvin Harrison was the number 1 option for about 7 years, always lined up on the right side. You could triple cover him if you wanted to because he was not – you knew exactly where he was going to be. And he got not only open but wide open and caught touchdown passes year after year after year. Marvin was special.
Pete, could you take Peter King if you had to, Tony? That's really what I want to know. Could you beat up Peter if you had to?
No. I couldn't. He's too nice a guy.
But you could. You just wouldn't is what I think you're saying there.
Is that couldn't or wouldn't?
Yeah.
Probably let's say wouldn't.
Thank you, Tony.
All righty. Great to talk with you
All
guys.
right, buddy. It was great, though. You know, Pete, yeah, because you're in MMQB mode, and you walk in, and you're on Tony, and then all of a sudden, Tony, like, stops, turns around, and it was like, oh, boy, I left
It basically
the room.
defeats every one of my points.
I know. I left the room. I walked out. I went, uh-oh, this is getting interesting here. Before I let you go, the Tampa situation with Josh Freeman, as you told me last night, they have to pay him $6.4 million, whether he's on the roster or not. But does anybody want Josh Freeman right now?
I talked to the teams with the two biggest reservoirs of cap cash right now, both of which need a quarterback for the future, Cleveland and Jacksonville. And there's zero interest in either place.
What happened to this kid?
Well, it's a hard time, first of all, if you're going to trade this guy, you're asking some team to make a commitment to somebody who all they know for the last year and a half has been playing bad football, and now apparently is a renegade who is lining up interviews to trash the team and all that other stuff. So who are you getting exactly? You don't know if you're getting the guy who 3 years ago looked like he could be some sort of early Andrew Luck, really bright guy, incredibly hard worker, good field general, and that is dissolved for whatever reason. Maybe it's Schiano related. Who knows? But, I think one of the things that you're looking at right now is you got to give a team a reason to go and step out on a limb to go sign somebody, especially if you're going to have to pay him significant money in this year. Why would you do that? The guy's going to be a free agent after the year unless you sign him to a long-term deal now. Why would you want to sign him to a long-term deal now? You have no idea who he is, what he is, anything. I just think there's too much mystery surrounding this guy for there to be a buzz to go get him.
The website is themmqb.com. He's Peter King from Football Night in America. Pete, thanks for stopping in the Man Cave.
Thank you, Dan.
The Dan Patrick Show, weekday mornings on Audience.